What's going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live. Sorry, we've started out a few minutes late, had a couple of technical difficulties, which we seem to have every once in a while, but with the lives. We're going to talk today about bug out bags. Now, we've talked ad nauseum about bug out, but there are some philosophies, there are some things that I really think are important. But the big thing is if you have a bag in your car, which I highly recommend. First off, all of my family members, they have a bag in their car. It has the needed supplies. Now, bug out bag, get home bag, inch bag, go bag, whatever you want to call it, emergency kit, having those items with you in your vehicle. Now, even FEMA talks about having supplies at home for emergencies, also having a smaller container that is transportable that you can put in your vehicle. So here's the thing, guys, when you're putting together a get home bag, bug out bag, whatever, this is not zombie apocalypse necessarily. It is an emergency bag that can take care of a lot of things. Sometimes it's just items that I just need. Maybe I need some paracord. Maybe I'm starting a bonfire somewhere and they're trying to pour gasoline on it. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's a lot of reasons, medical kits, a lot of things that you can have in your bag for those everyday emergencies. One of the things that I always say is you can have a personal SHTF. It may affect no one else. It may be just you. And guys, I mean, we've all experienced that where we've had situations that have happened. So having a bug out bag that can take care of the little things, but also can take care of bigger problems, just fits in your car. You can take it or you can have it at home. Now, I recommend having some survival supplies in your vehicle. So first thing I want to talk about before we get started, though, I want to mention Exotac. Exotac is one of the best fire starter tools out there. They're down in Winder, Georgia. They make some of the best, whether it's ferro rods, fire sleeves, a lot of different tools. And you need a fire kit. To me, it's one of the most important elements, even in a bug out situation, because fire can cook your food. It can boil your water. It gives you heat. It gives you light, and it can keep predators at bay. So it's one of those things. Plus, it just builds good morale. So having a good fire kit really is essential. It's primal. It's something man has had to have from the beginning. You get 20% off using Suits20 with the link down below in the description. I know you guys use it. I get a lot of feedback, but I've been using Exotac tools for a number of years, and we really appreciate Exotac for sponsoring us. Also, check out the modern survival manual for the coming economic collapse. These are actual events that happened in Argentina, written by Firearm. It was in 2001, but they have gone through a couple since then. But now they're back on track. But this is a great book of real world situations in a SHTF. So those two, and the links down below in the description, because I'd always mention this book. It's one of the main books that I have. In fact, I have a number of copies because I like to give it out to friends, but I always want to keep one. Okay, so bug out bag, get home bag, whatever. For me, typically, if I'm around town, I have my get home bag, and usually it's something a little bit smaller. It's just a day pack pretty much. And I have some needed supplies in there in case something happens where I'm just away from home. I mean, I might be down the road. I might be shopping. I might be at the grocery store. I could just be out. I could be at Palmetto State Armory probably, or Cabela's. And something happens. No one knows. I mean, when situations happen, they just happen. But I have the needed supplies that I need if I need to walk home. And I can do that. A bug out bag gets a little bit more in depth. And one of the things about it is you may be having to evacuate. Now, you should primarily bunker in. If there is a situation around, you should plan to stay at home as long as you can, because that's where your supplies are. That's where you live, that you're familiar with your surroundings, you know your neighbors, and hopefully you have built good relationships with your neighbors. Very important aspect. A lot of times neighbors can get on our nerves, but we have some really good neighbors. But having those relationships, that is really should be your primary. There are people that their whole survival preparation is around a bug out bag, and that's really limited. Bugging out makes you a glorified refugee. That's what it does. And if you're planning to throw on a backpack and head out into the woods, you're in a lot more danger. Problem is, if you're in a vehicle and there is a major disaster or some kind of catastrophe, the highways, the roads could be clogged. So that may be your only option. The one thing about a bag is it gives you options. And the one thing about prepping, and I've been saying this quite a bit lately, is that it just buys you time. You can't prep enough. Guys, if you are so obsessed that you're trying to get everything you need and you're piling up stockpiles, which I'm not saying anything against that, if that's what you feel like you need to do. And we have our own, believe me, we have some things put back. But prepping just buys you time. It keeps the panic down and it gets you in a position to where you can make better choices and you're not desperate. So the thing is having supplies if something goes wrong and knowing, hey, I've got a bag in the back of my car. There are things going on, but I might be good. I've pulled things out of my bag a number of times. Now, a big thing is to go through your bag, because what happens is, if you're like me, I might get in there and go, oh, you know what? I need the fire kit. I'm starting a fire. And so I get it out, I put it down, intending on putting it back. I don't. Or maybe there's my silky saw in here, or maybe whatever. I just pull it out and then I don't put it back. So first off is to make sure that you have the items that you need. Honestly, right before this video, this morning, I'm looking through my bag and I'm going, okay, there are a couple of things here that I think I pulled out. So let's go through it. Let's check it out. Number two, really important, is to go through and check your zippers, check your handles, make sure that your bag is in good shape. Make sure it doesn't have holes in it. If it does, patch them. Take care of your bag. Keep maintenance, because one problem is, especially if you're keeping it in a back cargo area and you're loading, you've been to Lowe's and you're loading up a bunch of stuff, you've got some wood or whatever, you can damage your bag. So you want to make sure that you keep track of that. Then number three is you need to make sure that it's seasonal. We have cool weather coming, thank goodness. I'm really looking forward to it. But we have cool weather coming and you need to adapt and maybe change some things. But one thing I will say is, even in the middle of the summer, in July, August, when it's really hot, you can get cold. And if it starts to rain or the temperatures drop at night, you want to still have some items, but you need to beef it up when it comes to your seasons, or you need to maybe take some things out. Okay, so what I have here, and this is really not necessarily a bug out bag, but this is what I keep in my vehicle. And really, I ran across this. We did a video on building a bug out bag at REI. And that can be very expensive. In fact, I think it was around over $800, which, if you want the right supplies, you want the best, because these items could be the difference between life and death or a serious situation. And I got one of the North Face duffels, and this thing packs out. Actually, it comes in a small bag, and then you pull it out and it will go back into a small bag size. It has shoulder straps where I can carry it, but I have all my needed supplies. Now, one thing I want to mention, and it does have these side handles. This is a great bag. In fact, I ended up buying one for everyone in the family. I just said, here, this is a great bag. It has a waterproofing material. It has some organization, but yet it is open to be able to put a lot of supplies in it. So this bag to me is one of those bags that it just tripped my trigger. Now, a lot of times, like this little Dagan from Roaring Fire Gear, this is a great get home bag. I can pack my supplies in here. It's made of wax canvas. It's just a great bag. But I want something a little more. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go through here. We're going to look at some different supplies or different things. One thing that's important to have, and in your vehicle, regardless of bug out or not, is to have your med kits. Med kits are very important. Having a trauma kit. If you're in an accident or someone else is really in dire straits, you need to have some kind of way to treat those people. It may be a family member, so you want to make sure. So I do keep one in my bag, but I also keep something in my vehicle. And this is just a great option as far as really for bugging out, especially with a group, is I have this clinic in a roll. This is from amp3.net. USNER Doc, his YouTube channel. He was a Portland emergency room doctor, and he puts together some of the best kits out there. Top notch. And this will take care of a ton of different things. In fact, we've done a review on this a few years ago. I might have to update that because these are great bags. Now, he's a personal friend of mine. And you can, there's a link. In fact, I don't think I even have the link, but it's AMP3, it was actually AMP-3.net, and use Suits 20 and you get 20% off of his stuff. And I really appreciate him doing that because his gear is just top notch. Another source is a good friend of mine as well, and that's Skinny Medic, and it's Medical Gear Outfitters. So make sure that you have your different kits set up. This is a range kit. It's great. You know, we take this to the range, but I have a smaller trauma kit in here because I want to fit in my bag. Now, one thing to really realize, a lot of people want to get down to the minimum, the very minimum they can get to. And I understand that philosophy very well because you're carrying this and it's going to be heavy. And the farther you carry it, the more it's going to weigh you down. So there are items a lot of times that are just maybe redundant. Maybe, you know, you're like, well, I don't think I really need that. And you just toss it aside. But really having the items, you can always pull items out. You can't always put items back in. So go through your bag. Now, first thing is we go by the rule of threes with all of our preps, whether it's our home preps, whether it's our vehicle, bug out, get home. And that is, you can live 3 minutes without air. You can live 3 hours in extreme harsh conditions. You can live 3 days without water. You can live 3 weeks without food. Self-defense and medical flow in between. So that really helps me, and it's helped me over the years to kind of focus. You know, one of the things about a bag is you go somewhere and you're looking for your bag and you're like, oh, I'll get this, I'll take that, I'll get this. And before long, you know, you may have items that, oh, that looks pretty cool. Well, yeah. And the other thing is, we did a video a while back on bugging out with our prepper group. And this has been a number of years ago. And we met at a certain location. It was actually in a parking lot. And we went through all the items of our bag. One of the things that stood out to me was there were some of our members that actually had items still in the packaging. Get your stuff out and try it. You don't want to try it for the first time in an emergency. You want to try it and get good at it and understand what you have in your bag. Okay, so we have the bag. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through some items. We're going to look at it. Again, you set up your bag the way you want to. Really, for my standard bug out bag, I have a Mystery Ranch, big Mystery Ranch bag, and it fits a lot of stuff. And so that's really my bug out bag. This is really a glorified get home bag / bug out bag. Now, another note. If you are away from home, let's say you're on vacation. I mean, this is, you know, we just got through Labor Day weekend. A lot of people are out of town. We went down to the lake. It's about 45 minutes by car. Take that in your GPS and put in from driving to walking and look and see how much time it would take for you to get from just 40 minutes away, and it will astound you. If you're a long way away, you've got to consider you can't carry enough food. You can't carry enough supplies, honestly. So you're going to have the mindset to be able to adapt. All right. So first off, we open it up and we have this big mesh net. Again, this is not super compartmentalized to really, you know, organize everything, but this is where I keep most of my tools. And one of the things that I love is the Silky saw. And this is a folding saw. And man, this thing cuts like you would not believe. I mean, it is incredible. It has Chinese or Japanese technology in the blade, and it cuts really fast. Of course, having a fixed blade knife is going to be vital. And I have one of the SC4s. I love. Or this is actually, yeah, it's SC4, and I have a little clip that I can put it on my belt. This is something that having a full tang, and that means having the metal coming all the way down the edge. This gives it strength, and you want a decent, just full-on fixed blade knife. You may have a small pocket knife in your pocket. You can have some very strong ones, but they're not going to beat your knife. And I have a bandana in here. And guys, bandanas are so useful, but also it keeps dust and debris out of your face. If there's smoke, whatever, this can really help. Plus, it has a lot of other uses. Hobo sack. You can use it to wipe your head. You can wrap it around your head like a bandana or a do-rag or whatever to keep your head covered. Lots and lots of reasons to have a little bandana. And I put paracord Now, this is the spool tool. It's one of my favorites. I've used these for years. In fact, I just bought a bunch of these to deck out. But this keeps your cord, your paracord, organized. If you haven't, you ever pulled out your paracord and it's like a rat's nest. And so this really helps. Has a cutter, has a place for one of those little micro or little small Bic lighters. I find that a lot of times they do not last like the larger ones, but it's not even in here because I have a fire kit. And then one thing too is tent stakes. Now, I'm not carrying a tent in this, and the main reason is because it just takes up a lot of room, and I've got other options, and I'll show you those. But I just have some of the, I think these are MSR tent stakes. You can make tent stakes if you need to. You can take wood, you can shave it down if you have a good knife, and you can make your own tent stakes. But I like to have these because here's the thing, guys. When you are in a situation, a survival situation, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of things that have to be done. Plus, you have the calories that you have with you, and that's it. You don't want to expend a lot of extra energy. So just think about that. Now, it can get to the point where, well, this just piles up in my bag, and I can make do. Well, you can't. Okay, I have some gloves. Gloves are going to be vital, especially in a tough situation. It keeps my hands covered, keeps them from getting injured. It keeps them cleaner, and it just can keep them warmer if you need to. And I have a map. Now, I keep maps in my vehicle, regular road maps. You can get these at most of your travel areas, and it really helps, like truck stops, things like that. Or you can order them online. Have some maps. I have had to use a map before because my GPS, I lost signal, and I was in the middle of nowhere, and thank goodness I had a map, and I pulled it out, and it got me back on track. Let's see what else. Okay, that's pretty much it. I have, for some reason, I have another silky saw in here, so I'm gonna put that in another bag. But that's the kind of stuff, you know, going through your bag, making sure that you have everything. Now, medical. I have a medical kit, trauma kit, cat tourniquet, chest seals, hemostatic gauze, all the things you need for, and nitrile gloves. And I have it in my little small trauma kit. Not too super small, but this is definitely a well-equipped trauma kit. Get training. But medical is going to be vital again. And then I have a little admin pouch. And this actually just has some odds and ends. I have some batteries in here. I have a fishing kit. I have a seal cock wrench. Now, you may say, what in the heck is a seal cock wrench? If you've ever been downtown in a city and you've seen a water spout, but it has like a little weird to turn on. It doesn't have a standard valve. And that's to keep people from going over and turning it on. This is so you can turn it on. So if you needed water, you can get to it. And so this really is a big deal, honestly. I have a knife sharpener in here, and I have a whistle. Whistles are very important for a number of reasons. First off, you know, it signals if you're lost or people are looking for you, you can signal them. Also, if you're in bear country, you can kind of blow the whistle and warn them that you're out there. But one big thing is if you're in a situation where there is panic going on and people are yelling and shouting and everything's going crazy, you can blow a whistle. And or even for self-defense, you're under some duress or somebody's coming up to attack you, you can blow that whistle, especially for females, because guys, you guys are very vulnerable to that kind of thing. So this is just a little admin kit. I can put a lot of other stuff in here. It's not like my EDC kits. These are just really just random tools that I need. Okay, now let me say this, and I didn't say it at the beginning, but if you have some questions, we're going to go to them when we have time. Sarah Mack is monitoring, so you can ask that question now. We're going to take a break in just a few minutes. Another thing is, and this is something I just did a video on the Sea Crane radio solar, but having an emergency radio. Now, you may say, why do you need it in here? Well, this can give you information. It's a receiver, so you're not able to transmit, but you can get on here, find out what the weather's doing. You can listen to news, know what's going on, and it has solar. It has a hand crank, has rechargeable batteries, has a little handle, has a light. Great option. They do make smaller ones. And Sea Crane, you can go to seacrane.com, I believe it is, or look up Sea Crane radios. Just Sea Crane, C-R-A-N-E. And we did a video again about that, and they had a ton of different options. I'll be honest, I think I would trade this little Midland out for one of the smaller little radios because it'll go better in my pack. This takes up a little bit of room. Okay, next is just taking care of yourself. I mean, and this is where the rule of threes is 3 hours in harsh conditions. I have a ball cap. But I also have a watch cap. Even in the summertime, I keep a watch cap. And I have extra socks. You're going to be walking, you're going to be traveling. You need to have good fresh socks. What you can do is if the socks that you're wearing get wet, dirty, or whatever, you can rinse them off, wash them off, hang them on the back of your pack to let them dry out. And then you have an extra pair of socks. And I have a couple of pair. Okay, we're going to go to this next item, and then we're going to go to some questions if we have some questions. One thing that I put in every bag, period, and sometimes just in the back of my car, are heavy meal trash bags. These are contractors' bags. You get these at Lowe's or Home Depot. These aren't just regular trash bags. These are to collect debris and things around a work site. So they're really tough, and they have a very heavy meal to them, and they're very large. Use this for shelter. Use this for carrying water. Use this for carrying certain items. If you lose your pack, if the strap breaks and you're having to carry things, you can actually take this. You can use this as a ground cover. I mean, this gives you so many options. Keep the sun off. Keep a windbreak up. Put it on the ground so your heat doesn't go through the ground. Great option. Something, and it's so small and thin, and they're cheap, and you can buy a big box of 40, which we do, and we use them on a regular basis. And then again, I have another bandana. So do we have any questions?
Bill Van Helden, this is not really a question, but a good comment, says, living in Florida and surviving several hurricanes, no one around me ever died for a lack of water or food, but they did drown. So now we have added life preservers to our bug out equipment.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. And that's one thing about Florida. We just got back from Florida. We were went down and had a great time. Beautiful, beautiful. So yes, you guys are used to hurricanes. You're used to that little bit of survival situation. The great thing about Florida, though, in going through those hurricanes is you are typically more prepared because it's a regular thing. And I think that's one of the things that happened to us when Helene came through South Carolina, but mainly through Western North Carolina and through Eastern Tennessee, is it was devastating. And they weren't ready for flooding because they haven't had it in over 100 years. So a lot of things were crazy. And so, guys, having a mindset toward what are your vulnerabilities? Tornadoes, hurricanes, which you don't really think when you're at this far away from the coast, but they are storms. So just storms in general. Fire. Or you live on the West Coast and you have earthquakes or possibly volcanoes. So there's situations to where whatever your area is, make sure you're prepared for that.
Private Eye 888 says, have you ever heard of the Going Home book series called Charlie's Requiem? It's a spin-off collaboration that takes place in Orlando during the EMP while Morgan is up in Ocala.
Yeah, and I think that was a collaboration with G. Michael Gordon, I believe, he has a series all on his own, the New World series, I believe it is. It is a really good series. Yes, I have read Charlie's Requiem, and I've read all the Going Home books twice. I'm a good friend of Chris Weatherman's, great guy, full of knowledge. I highly recommend that series. But you're right, there are some really great books to be able to get your mindset. And I think that's one of the big things. And there's little tidbits all throughout that. So great option. Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Chris Sola says, my worry is having a large enough bug out bag, get home bag in my truck and hoping it does not get stolen from my truck.
Yeah, that is a problem. It is a problem. And trying to secure that bag. One thing that I found, and I found this a few years ago, is there is a mesh bag you can get. It's metal, has mesh metal. Now, people can clip the metal and get the bag out, but typically people that are breaking into cars, they don't have a lot of tools with them. So having something to where you can actually put your bag in this metal mesh bag, and it has a cable that runs, and you can hook it to part of the frame inside your car, like your seating mounts or whatever, and you can lock that down. That's one thing if you're carrying a firearm in your vehicle. That's also a great way to do it, is to lock it down and anchor it and keep it safe to where they can't get to it. So that's a great option, but that is one thing you can do. And it's been a number of years ago when we did that with security with these mesh bags. And you can just take a standard cable, a steel cable, and run it through the handles. Again, these guys that are breaking in, a lot of times it's teenagers or just, meth heads or whatever, and they don't necessarily have knives and tools and things like that, except just what's expedient, maybe to break your window. But yes, security is vital. You don't want to have your items stolen out of your vehicle, and then you have to replace it. But plus, then you don't have your items. In fact, my brother had his bug out bag stolen out of his vehicle, and it was at the mall, and my niece forgot to lock the car. And so they just took it. So that sucked.
DZ Ren says, question, do you have a preference of a duffel bag or backpack for a vehicle bug out bag?
Well, let me say this. This duffel, this is a duffel bag in a sense, and it does have shoulder straps. It's actually fairly comfortable to carry. It doesn't match, though, the harness on some of the new bags. I mean, this one has a really great harness system. It's going to ride on your back well. It's got a waist strap. This is going to fit you. Now, so with that being said, you really need to, first off, buy a good quality bag with it that's going to fit. Now, for me, what I love about the duffel is that it actually it lays in my vehicle where I can just open it up like I've got here. I've got it just opened up, and I can find my items easy. I would recommend having a small backpack set aside in your vehicle, just empty even, that you could transfer these items if you wanted to. If you thought, you know what? And then number two is getting your bag out and walking around with it. Go a mile. I mean, a mile's not really that far when you're thinking about bugging out. See where the hot spots are. See how it fits on your back. Finding the right bug out bag can be vital. And so if you're sitting here and your shoulders have these strap marks through them and your back's hurting and you're walking around, it keeps you from being alert. It keeps your energy down, and you need to have as comfortable as a bag as you can. That's why I have the Mystery Ranch for my bug out bag. It's a big bag. It's expensive, but man, I can take that thing and it rides right on my back. It even has these foam supports at the back that kind of ride off a little bit. So, that's another option. Plus, another thing about bags is if you don't have any ventilation back there, back gets wet, it gets sweaty. Then you take the bag off and then it evaporates and you get cold. Okay, we'll come back to some questions. Let's go ahead and go through this. You guys are great about questions. Rain gear. Rain gear is one thing, especially if nothing else, just a good jacket, a rain jacket. Keeps with a hood, keeps your body, just dry, which is going to be important. This is actually a North Face, and it's called the Dry Vent. It's a black little rain jacket. I have 3 of these. Actually, I have 2 of these. My son's, one of his roommates borrowed it, and he has it. So this is really my favorite. It's just a North Face rain jacket. It's a little more expensive, and I think I got this at Cabela's, and it just works great. Now, you may have your own options. There are a lot of different rain jackets, and guys, I'll just tell you, just get a rain jacket, or you can even get rain pants. I typically don't, but having a good rain jacket is going to be important. It's going to keep you from getting hypothermia. If it really gets soaking, you get soaked, and you're not able to get dry unless you build a fire, which goes back to your fire kit. I also like to have some kind of wet wipes. Now, these are combat wipes, but I've been finding these dude wipes at Walmart. In fact, I never go to Walmart, but for some reason I was in there actually getting ready for the TSA video and found the dude wipes. These are combat wipes, and it's actually the same type packaging. This will be great to keep you clean, but the most important is it's great for toilet paper if you need it. So any kind of wet wipes, doesn't have to be anything special. Or make sure you have toilet paper. But I like the wipes, and you need to make sure that they're still moist. You don't want to get there. Of course, you can still use them if they weren't. I do have a cable in here. This is just a micro USB-C, and I have different devices, and we're going to look at that because I do have a battery backup. The Grail water filter. This is a press. I really like this system. Now, I do like, for smaller bags, I like the Frontier filter straws, the Pro in particular, because it will filter quite a bit of water, and it's small. And if you get one of the smaller Aquamira filter straws, they will filter like 11 gallons of water. So in some of the smaller kits that I've used, or if it's just something I want to have like an EDC kit, because water is vital. You can only live 3 days without it. You can live longer, but your body starts to dehydrate, you get cramped up, and you might as well not be here. So having something, I just really like the Grail ever since it came out. My fire kit, and see, it's not that big. I mean, it's just a small fire kit. I have a Fresnel lens at the beginning, right here in this little pouch, because you can use the sun. And then, of course, I have ferrocerium rods, lighters. I have fire tinder. Fire tinder is one of the most important elements of a fire kit because you can have a ferro rod and get a lot of strikes, but it takes a while to get it to light. And so even Vaseline and cotton balls, here I have some tinder tabs, and I think I got these from Exotac as well. And then just some different items in here. And I have a striker, which is a knife, and you need to test that knife against your ferro rod because if it doesn't have enough carbon in it, it won't strike it. So you need to test that because there are knives that won't. And just other items that I have in here just for fire. And listen, you need to have redundancy. If you just have a Bic lighter, listen, I love Bic lighters. They're the most convenient. They're easy to use, and it comes on. But the fuel can run out, and it can even be pressed. You may not even have used it. It can get pressed. Or what really happens to me most of the time is the little wheel gets corroded and locks down, and I can't even get any spark. One thing about the fuel running out, I still have spark. So I can actually light a fire even if there's no fuel. But when that little wheel. So with that being said, having a ferro rod, having some waterproof matches, some lifeboat matches that'll even burn underwater, I like to have all that put aside. Now, one thing that is cooking. Now, you may have some MREs or you may have some different things. I have some food in here. It's Mountain House food. So I have a small container, which you need to have a container. But with this, I have a small little, I think it's just propane. And then we have a little burner. This thing works beautifully. And then I have a small pot that I can cook food in. Or I can boil some water if I need to. So that's one thing about boiling water can be vital. And just this is a stainless steel. This is actually from the Pathfinder school. So a great item to have, and it has a small little lid. And I have a spork. Sporks are important. This happens to be a K-bar, and it actually opens. Let's see, there it goes. And I have a small knife, and it's just a polymer knife, but it has serrations, and this thing works really good. And then I have my spork on the end. So this gives me an option. Plus, if I needed to, I could use this as a self-defense tool, which I'm always thinking about. Okay, we're going to go to this, and then we're going to go to a few more questions. I'm going to just hit this. Now, having some kind of tarp or tent. There are some small, lightweight tents that work great, and I highly recommend that. This is I believe it's the Arc'teryx, and this has the Mylar inside. So this is like an emergency space blanket. It has eyelets so I can attach the paracord to my tent stakes. And then I can use whatever I have around if I have to put together some wood, which I have my silky saw. But shelter is important. Again, guys, whether it's hot or extreme cold, being able to, a lot of people, in fact, this summer, there have been a number of people that died while they were hiking out west and other places because they just got dehydrated, they overheated, and they died from just exposure. So this will help keep that down. And just like that trash bag, that heavy meal trash bag, this can be a wind shelter. It can just be a shade. At night you can wrap up with it, and that Mylar will reflect your heat back to it. So great option. Okay, what do we got?
Nick Cowart says, howdy from Florida. Can you recommend a good rain jacket that has some venting and breathability?
Well, we were just talking about this one, this little North Face, and it's a little, I think it's about $100. It is one of the best rain jackets I've found. And I have a ton of them, but I bought actually 3 of these. So this has what they call the dry vent. And when you have it on, it just kind of wicks away any moisture. And it has this white material on the inside. So it's actually a nice looking jacket as well. But North Face, just a great jacket, great rain jacket. And it just folds up, wads up. It makes it small. I keep one in my bag. I keep one at the house, and I try to keep one at the shop. So having multiples of that is just more convenient for me.
Zach G says, I have a Ruger LC9. Do you think a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 and 380 would be better for EDC? Looking for something smaller.
If you have the LC9, you may have like limited round capacity. I think it's a straight, I believe it's 7 rounds. My son carries the LCP Max, and it has 10 or 12 rounds, it's the same size, and it's a great gun. That's a great gun. The Shield Plus has that higher round capacity. With the double stack mags, I would definitely look at maybe going to that just a little bit more round capacity. So yes, the Shield. In fact, my wife, that's what she carries, the Shield, and it works really good. So yes, I think that's a great option. And again, you're going to have a single stack mag versus more round capacity for not any bigger. So I think it's a smart move.
Mark Ryder says, question, how heavy is your bag? How heavy do you recommend?
It's according to who you are. If you're smaller stature, it may be difficult to carry more poundage. Around a 30-pound bag is about max. I wouldn't go over that. But you have to put the items in that you need. I do not know because actually, as I was talking about, I got in this bag this morning and started looking and replacing things. I should have waited out. So, but I have actually mounted this, walked around. We have some property. So, in fact, I used to do this every morning. I would get up, put my Bugout bag on, and I would just walk around the perimeter of the property. And, and you start to learn. You start to learn some things about your bag. So I recommend that. I wouldn't go over 30 pounds. You can, the U.S. military, some of those guys carry big rucksacks. So, but, they're in combat. And, for that matter, you could also be.
Julio from Denver says, question, do you still have the Canik SFX? If so, how's it holding up?
It's holding up fantastic. And listen, Canik just makes a great option. And I'm really glad you brought that up. We have the Canik ST, it's the SFX, the Mete. It's the longer slide. I think it's the STX. But it's with the longer slide. We have a kit that actually Canik sent for a review, and we have that right now on suitsgear.com. And we have a sweepstakes. In fact, it ends on September 16th, I believe. And go over there and check it out. I mean, it is just it's like a Pelican case with just tons of extra mags, extra barrel, even sights, red dot sight, and your weapons light. It's got everything. And I think it's about $1,299 value. So check that out because we are giving that away on suitsgear.com. Plus we do giveaways once a month anyway. So go check that out. We have some new shirts. I have my Sensible Prepper shirt here, and we've got some new stuff. So check that out. We also have a lot of stuff, newsletters and things. So suitsgear.com, check that out. But the Caniks, they hold up really good. They're excellent quality. They are very responsive to what people are wanting. So there's a number of different models, and it really helps you to pick it out. I really like the Mete series, and I have the same version of that gun. I believe it's in the 4.5-4-inch model, and I'm keeping it. I just have a couple of extra longer slides, so that's one of the reasons why we're doing this sweepstakes. But it's actually the gun that I reviewed. So check that out on suitsgear.com.
Elena Breck says, Don, do you remember the title of your video about making fire under the rain?
Yes. And listen, guys, here's the thing. I've been making fire for a long time, and I like to go out and start fires, testing different gear out, building fires for whatever reason. But it was funny. I just realized that I'd never gone out in the rain to do it. And to be completely candid, it was a lot easier than I thought. And it had been raining for 3 days straight when I made this video, I believe. So the big thing is you want to have wood, find pieces of wood that are maybe leaning on a tree, that are older, that aren't laying on the ground. Because what happens is it takes a while for the water to soak into. So what you have to do is cut through, get to the drier wood, and then you can start to use it. But you can take regular sticks that are wet, and you can build it around a small fire that you have going, and they'll dry out. And then you just add bigger sticks, and they dry out, and bigger sticks, and they dry out. You typically have to keep it somewhat covered if it's raining. But I'm going to tell you guys, check that video out. It's how to make a fire in the rain. It's not as difficult. But if you don't know what you don't know, you can't do it. So get smart about it. Rain is definitely something. Thanks, Elena. That was a great comment. Okay. One more.
Ernie Andrews asked, how about a cart pulled by a bike?
Listen, I've been thinking about this for a while, especially after realizing that to walk home could take weeks. is having a bicycle, which you can, the app, typically your GPS will give you that option of how long it'll take on a bicycle. In fact, we have a friend of ours, his son is at a university on the other side of us, and they live over here. So he has a bicycle that he left at his dorm and said, hey, if you ever need it, here's the bicycle. You can get to us, and then we can get him to him. So bicycles is just a force multiplier because it gives you a lot of options. Now there are e-bikes, there are even scooters, there's even skateboards. Something that can transport you faster without expending as much energy is going to be vital. And so that's one of the things, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of the things that we're going to be looking at coming up is having some sort of bicycle. And there are so many different options. There are even some that fold up and you can unfold them and go. So great option, great idea. Okay, let's go on and we're going to finish up. Now this is the Platypus by Maxpedition, and this has a multi-tool, a knife. I believe it has a ferrocerium rod back here. It has some other emergency items here in the back of it. I like to have just a small kit that if I need to grab it, I've got the necessary items right there. And even though this is a kit that's decked out and filled out, because this I can just put this around my neck as a lanyard or even crossbody or put it in a cargo pocket. And if I get separated from my bag, it gives me at least a few tools for survival. And those are minimal. I don't want to survive on this, but if I have to, it's going to give me a better chance than if I get separated from my bag or the bag gets taken from me, which I would probably be dead before that happened. All right, but they can get the jump on you. Now, this is actually redundant, but I'm going to bring it out anyway. This is the SOS Escape Bivy. It's like a small sleeping bag. So I can use the tarp to cover. I can use it as shelter. I can get in this to keep my body heat in the right place. And so these are great. They're very small. There's some really small ones. In fact, I have them in some of my other kits. This one's a little bit larger. It's multi-use. It's not going to be as durable as a sleeping bag, but it does have the Mylar inside to keep you warm, like a space blanket. But it's a space blanket on steroids, and it's really good. And so is this, for that matter. That kind of technology is really going to be important. Okay, then I have my Mountain House food. I have it separated. I have it right here, and I've got my utensils where I can cook this if I want. MREs are a great idea. In fact, they have the little heaters that you can that you can actually heat the food up right there with that. So that's also a great option. One thing I do like is to have lifeboat food. And in fact, I have one of the lifeboat bars in here. SOS lifeboat food. It'll keep you from getting thirsty. It's high in calories. I think this is 2,500 calories right here in this block. You can get higher, you can get lower. It's just a great way to have energy and have it right there. And the one thing about the lifeboat food is I don't have to cook it, to do anything. If I need to just eat on the go, I can. Now we have these side little panels, and in here I have a pair of binoculars. Now binoculars are very important. You can have something going on down the road that you can't really tell what's going on. You bring in some binoculars and you're able to get detail. And so it's one thing we keep around the house because we have property, and sometimes if somebody happened to come around down below on some of the other areas of our property, I can bring those binoculars out and I can see if they're up to trouble or not before I engage and go to them. And then I have battery backup with my cables. This is going to be something in today's world that's important. I have to think about this one. Pepper spray. And this is the Saber Red. This is my favorite. This is a bigger one than I typically carry, but I have it in here. And I'm going to tell you guys, I've not always been a fan of pepper spray until we had, right after COVID, and we had all the BLM and Antifa riots, and where I saw people that were trapped by mobs, and a firearm was not an option. This will get people away from you. And so having this is just one of your tools for self-defense. And then I have one of the vaults, and this has a lot of batteries in here, and it keeps them dry and it keeps them out of the way. And then I have a couple of other items, one of those little expanding towels that kind of keeps you dry, and got some zip ties in here. Okay, where are we at? All right, we got 10 minutes. Okay, now on this other side, got another bandana. And I have one of the Frontier Pro filter straws. A little redundant, but it gives me another option if for some reason something happens to this. Water is that vital. and this is my backup. And it's really easy to carry. It's not a big deal. And then, well, I have another multi-tool in here. So I probably don't need 2 multi-tools. But that is pretty much what is in this bag. So guys, the big thing is to make sure that you have your items. Now, again, let's say that this is getting too heavy. I have that Frontier filter straw. If I have to, I can toss this or give it to someone else or whatever, and they can use it. I mean, this is not lightweight. Maybe some of the other tools that I might want to go through and say, you know what, this is not like super vital. And if I don't lessen this pack, I'm not going to make it. And one of the things about the Chisholm Trail back in the Old West, the frontier days, is they had these wagon trains going through. And all along the trail, people would take the items that they had, because a lot of times they would put like pianos, or they would have family heirlooms. They'd have all this just stuff that when they were moving, and they realized that it was tearing up their wagons and it was slowing them down. And all along the trail, there was stuff just thrown on the side. And I mean, just all kind of stuff. And so you can, if you overpack your bag, you can lighten it if you have to. And sometimes, like redundancy, you know, if you have this SOL space bivy, you may not need something else, or, you know, any items. But honestly, with all the items I have here, I would be hard pressed to start throwing items out, because I feel like that these are important. And it's according to the situation. Could be just a natural disaster. You might be fine. You might be walking around. You're not really worried about people attacking you or taking your stuff. You just have your items with you. Then you could be in a grid down situation where you may be vulnerable. And that's a whole nother idea. One thing I do want to mention, and I think I've got it over here somewhere, and maybe I don't, or can't get to it, is having a rifle. It's going to be very important in certain situations. Again, it's according to how it goes. But if you do, you need a sling. Make sure that you have a sling on your rifle. For us, a lot of times we're doing different things. We've got different guns out. We're testing them. We're doing reviews. I don't put a sling on it. And one time I went to an event where I had to take my rifle. It was a training event, but got my sling. I was carrying that thing around all day instead of just putting it on my shoulder and able to carry it. Another thing is it gives you retention. So just like Kyle Rittenhouse, if he had not had a sling on his rifle, he probably wouldn't have made it. They probably would have killed him. But they couldn't get the gun away from him because he had that sling around it, and it allowed him to be able to defend himself without having the gun taken from him. So having a sling is going to be really important. There's a lot of things you can do to a rifle: scopes, backup sights, extra magazines, whatever. But if that thing gets taken from you or you drop it, your sling is going to be your number one accessory to put on your gun, period. And guys, here's the other side of it. And it's one thing that happened with Helene, is that a lot of people, as they were going around cleaning up and doing things, there were people that were stealing things because they didn't have anything. And a lot of people were walking around with a sidearm on their hip. And in a grid down situation, that could be one of the things you need to do. If you're like me, I don't open carry. I carry concealed because I don't want people to know it. But having that firearm handy and ready to go is going to be important with extra magazines. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes. If we have a couple of more questions, we'll see if we can get to
them. Private Eye asks, excuse me, would you recommend a hot tent with a winter well wood stove for a bug out option to survive for a longer period in colder environments like New York?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love that option. I thought about doing that, getting a little small wood stove. And, there are obviously a number of different options for that. That would require you having a vehicle. And most people, again, for bugging out, and that's one of the items. If you have to bug out in your vehicle, out of your vehicle, and you have to walk, obviously you can leave it. But really, to me, bugging out should be a vehicle that's decked out. And we did a video with my Jeep about how having the bug out items and bugging out with that Jeep. And honestly, maybe 2 people, maybe not, because I had so much stuff packed in there, and we talked about, being in the vehicle. The one thing about it is getting out of Dodge, getting somewhere, out of the hysteria. and being able to survive, I think a wood stove would be great. And typically, if you're in upstate New York, you can go and there's, forest and everything, so you can actually use that stove and survive. So yes, I think a wood stove, that option. But again, you've got to be ready in case that becomes not an option and you have to abandon it. So it's just according to the situation. The one thing I try to do is not to lock myself into this is going to happen, because we don't know what's going to happen. Just like when COVID popped up, nobody expected that. Then all of a sudden the whole world changed. SHTF can happen in multiple different ways. So you got to be versatile.
Marty619 says, thank you, Don, for everything you are doing. Question, what kind of role does your faith have for you in terms of prepping?
Oh, well, it's all encompassing. And it's one of the things you don't let this, because a lot of people can, let this be an idol. But one of the things that happened, yes, God does provide, but does he provide in your everyday? Yes. But does he not require you to do things like pay your car insurance, your home insurance, have a fire extinguisher in your house, just having a car repair kit maybe, or being a member of AAA, or having your cell phone? All that stuff is preparing you for different things that can happen. So this just takes it another step. And even Christ himself said to watch for the signs. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the world and has happened since the beginning of time. Civilizations have risen and fallen, and all heck's breaking loose. So being prepared for you and your family, to me, for your family especially, is a mandate that you take care of those that are vulnerable, that you take care of those that are in need. Nehemiah, when they were rebuilding the wall in Jerusalem, and they had the people that were attacking them, he said, have a sword on your hip, carry that sword, and you need to be prepared. Build, but be ready to fight. And, that was protecting their own. Of course, that was, they were rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. But to me, number one is, if I'm not prepared, yes, God can provide. But I will prepare, and then he can provide past that. Because let's face it, guys, you're not in control. Doesn't matter how big a bug out bag, doesn't matter how much stuff you have piled up. It doesn't matter. I'll tell you this little story. I actually said this last week when I was really concerned about, was I leading people astray with prepping? Trump was in office first term. Economy was starting to pick up. Things were going great. Everything was just happening. And I'm sitting here honestly questioning myself. Should I continue to do this? And I got to a point where I just asked God. I said, God, do I need to stop? We make ad money on sensible prepper. I mean, it's a nice income. But I was willing to not lead people astray, not to just, unless I really believed in it. And I'm going to tell you, it was like it said, it wasn't a voice or anything else, but it was like, keep doing what you're doing. And then the next week, COVID hit. The next week. God is the one who gives us the wisdom. He gives us the guidance. He gives us the knowledge. He gives us all these things, and we trust in him. But we also fill our tank up with gas. We also, again, pay our insurance. So being prepared is just smart. And in today's world, with the political climate and our cultural shift and immigration, especially like in Europe, my gosh, it's just a disaster. Cultures and civilization is changing. So yes, I can ride that hand in hand. Plus, what did Christ say? He said, if you have a cloak and you don't have a sword, or you have two cloaks, sell your cloak and buy a sword. So you can, to me, it's like, that means to be prepared. There we go. Go ahead. We'll go to one more.
Mondo Gecko asks, question, what exercise do you recommend for overweight preppers to start?
Walking first. Walking is going to be important. It's not tough on your body. Walking is going to be something. And two, just backing away from the table. I'm going to tell you guys, years ago, we were going to this buffet. And it was a Chinese buffet. It just opened. And me and my buddy would go there about 2 or 3 times a week. And we would eat as much as we could eat because we wanted to get our money's worth. It was only like $5.95 at that time. We're going to get our money's worth. And I would leave there so stuffed. And I remember one day I read this in a book. It said, eat to live, don't live to eat. And it kind of convicted me. And I was like, so the next time I went in, I got some soup. I got a plate of food and I got a little bit of fruit, and I walked out of there. I felt better. It was great. It was just better altogether. So walking to me is number one. Swimming. If you have a place to swim, we have a pool. If you can swim and get that exercise in, again, that's less stress on your body, especially when you're overweight, because you don't want to get out there and put too much pressure on your heart. And then, treadmills, things like that. Of course, then working out. But being active is probably one of the biggest things. And walking to me is a great way to start. Clears your head, gets you out there. You're not really trying to do anything. You're just walking. And then again, just when it comes to food, when it comes to that second helping, if you've eaten and you go, you know what, I'm satisfied, then stop. That's not always been my way, but that's what I've become. And it's helped me. It's helped me to stay more healthy. Okay, so just get your bug out bag. Make sure that it has the right items in it. Winter's coming, so think about that. And make sure and just give maintenance to your bag. Now, we want to give a big thank you again to Exotac, and we'll pull out my little tools here. Having a fire kit's vital. Again, boils your water, cooks your food, gives you light, gives you heat. And having a small little kit where you know where those tools are is important. Exotac, best fire starting kits out there, and you get 20% off using Suits20. And also, just because medical is so vital, is check out USNERDoc or AMP3.net for some of the best medical setups out there. And this clinic in a roll is great. We carry this on all of our vacations, and we have our med kits with us. And you get 20% off using Suits20, and it's AMP-3.net. And I should have a link down below in the description. We will be putting it in there. So, guys, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for the great questions. You guys always have good questions. And again, get yourself prepared. Don't obsess with it. Don't freak out. Don't hoard up everything you can think of. But prepare yourself, because it's going to buy you time. And that is important. Big thanks to Sarah Mack and to Seth. They're back there in the back. They're kind of helping out. And we really appreciate those guys helping us. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.